GSP is a legendary UFC fighter. Some consider him the best of all time. In this video, I'll react to the always excellent GQ Sports video of GSP breaking down how he spent his first $1 million and a blog post where he shares how much money he made for a fight at his peak. We'll also take a look at the latest UFC event to see how much the fighters are really making.
My first fight ever, I got paid $1,100 because my opponent did not make the weight. Otherwise, I would have probably made even less because I got 30% of his purse.
I have so much respect for MMA fighters. Is there anyone you'd want to fight for $1,000? Think of your worst coworker or the guy your ex was screwing on the side. Would you fight them for $1,000? That actually brings up an interesting fight idea. What if there was a fighting organization that let people hash out their personal beefs in the ring in a sanctioned fight with the referee, ensuring fairness? We could call it the You Want to Catch These Hands Fighting Championship. It would be girls fighting each other because one looked at the other's man the wrong way. You could have men fighting over their favorite sports teams. We need to make this league happen. That's what I envision $1,000 fights to be.
This is Pierre, and this is how I spend and save my first $1 million.
As this series matures, I'd love to hear the strategies these athletes have with saving and spending money. Do they only bank with one bank? Do they spread their money around? For the athletes handing their money over to a financial advisor, is it all of the money they have or only a portion? I'm fascinated with how the wealthy spend, save, and invest, and I think that'd be a cool feature to this series because I know most sports fans would be interested too.
I'm born in Montreal, Canada. I grew up in Saint-Isidore, the South Shore, where there's a lot of farms, not a lot of things going on.
Canadian people are known to be really nice. GSP was definitely not nice to his opponents' faces when he fought, or their necks as he had Michael Bisping in the rear naked choke. There's something about dudes born on farms that gives them superhuman strength. GSP fought most of his career in the welterweight division and definitely looks stronger than someone that weighs under 170 pounds.
I got into karate at first because I was bullied at school. I didn't know what I wanted to become until I saw the first UFC on TV when I was a teenager.
It's always interesting to me thinking about what ifs in life. There's a kid out there that bullied another kid in school that influenced the bullied kid to become one of the baddest dudes on the planet. He must have really bullied the crap out of GSP.
A few years ago, I drove my car on the street in Montreal. It's like in the evening. I see a tall guy coming at me, and he begged for money. Put down my window. This guy, I swear it's true story, is a guy that used to bully me in school.
GSP shared a crazy story on Joe Rogan where the bully came up to him and asked for money because he was in a bad place. GSP was a world champion fighter at the time.
And he thought I would be angry because when he see me, he saw his reaction, like shoot, like now I'm world champion, you know,
right.
Like I can beat him up, you know.
Right. GSP gave him some money, and years later, the guy went to GSP's house to thank him for turning his life around. Funny how life works out.
I was at school, but I was studying more because it was the right thing to do and because my parents pushed me. We didn't have a lot of money when I grew up. We were not poor either because I eat every day. I had money for school, but we were not wealthy.
If you think about the terms poor and wealthy, they don't really have a solidified definition. GSP grew up on a farm and was probably reasonably poor if you view poor and wealthy on a sliding scale based on income, but he had food on the table and was able to attend school, which are his qualifications for not being poor. There are so many examples of athletes earning tens of millions of dollars and going broke. Even though they earned a lot, they were actually no better off than someone who didn't earn money. The only difference is nicer restaurants, vacations, and material consumption during the period they made money. His interpretation of being poor is probably why he's so frugal, as you'll see in a second. It seems like he doesn't need much to be happy in life.
I had to work as security in a hip-hop nightclub, as a garbage man. I always find time to train.
I'm sure there was some idiot out there who got drunk at the wrong club on the wrong night and ran into GSP. Imagine being one of the drunk idiots who tries to pick a fight with the bouncer, and the bouncer you think you can beat up turns out to be GSP. That would be like a prank TV show. Here's another terrible idea. Put MMA fighters as bouncers for a night at a seedy nightclub and see which idiots try to pick fights with them.
Working and studying in the same time. My number one priority, my number one goal is to become champion in Ultimate Fighting Championship.
If there's one thing I've learned about world-class people, it's that they only focus on one thing. That focus leads them to being amazing at what they do. It only took him a couple of years after his first fight to fight for the title against Matt Hughes.
But at that time, I was not making enough money. Things were so tight to me that I couldn't afford to lose a fight. Because if I would have lost a fight, I would have been in debt.
There's a different hunger that exists when you have your back against the wall. Time and time again, you'll see people make the greatest leaps in life when they have no other choice but to succeed. Sometimes I wonder if you should artificially force yourself into a back against the wall, no option B scenario after you've had a little success at whatever you do every now and then, just to keep life fresh a little.
I remember my first fight in UFC, I made $3,000 to show, plus $3,000 to win.
His first fight in the UFC was on January 31st, 2004 against Caro Parisian on the UFC 46 card here in Las Vegas, Nevada. These guys really don't earn much when you factor in all of the costs associated with being a fighter. The sport of MMA has taken off like wildfire, and the UFC is worth billions of dollars. The main events are huge attractions now. Even ESPN is showing MMA on primetime. It's a long way from where the sport started, but the guys on the bottom of the card still aren't making a full-time income.
Then I had a second fight. I made $4,000 to show, plus $4,000 to win.
He was moving up in the UFC fighter pay category. He went from being able to train at his apartment gym to being able to afford a Costco card and a membership to a local gym.
Then I won that fight by knockout. That fight gave me a chance to go for the title right away.
I love how differently fighters are built. They speak about knocking people out like they just ate a bowl of cereal. Imagine a friend seeing you for the first time after a few years. Hey Spencer, I haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to? I'm a mixed martial artist now, and my last few fights have gone well. My last fight, I hit my opponent with an uppercut. He fell to the ground, and I made sure to end the fight by pummeling his face until the referee jumped in. The fight before that, I didn't feel as loose, and so I went into the 5th round where I got him in a chokehold, and thankfully he tapped right before passing out. He was still purple when I checked on him a couple minutes later.
I had a chance to pursue my dream. I was studying and I was working as well. I had like a crazy schedule. I sat down with my parents and I told them, I said, listen, if things doesn't go well, I can always come back to school. But for the next session, I would like to just focus on training because I have a title shot in it.
It's interesting to me how some world-class fighters are able to live a life where training isn't 100% of their focus, and yet they're still in world-class shape with skills good enough to compete for a title. There's a certain beauty to life where nearly everyone has to level up before having access to the necessary resources. That's why leveling up is such a challenge in any endeavor. Once you've proven yourself, like George did, then you're able to attain full resources, such as adequate time and energy for focused labor.
That's when I start to train full-time. I lost that fight, but it made me a much better fighter because I've learned a lot from that experience, and I rebound immediately after I finally get myself another title shot and I beat Matt Hughes.
After losing to Matt Hughes, GSP went on one of the best runs in UFC history. His first fight after the loss was on January 29, 2005, and was a fight he won to defend the TKO welterweight championship. Following that fight, he went 19-1, avenging both of his losses. Every fight from December 2007 until his final fight in 2017 was for a title, and he didn't lose once. Here's how much he made for his first world title fight from the blog post on wealthsimple.com. For my first fight for the world title, I got paid $9,000 to show and $9,000 to win, but I lost to Matt Hughes. So I only made $9,000 for my first world title fight. I was very underpaid. Then after that, I rebounded with a few victories and I got another shot at the world title. After I won the world title at 25, I had my revenge. Underpaid is an understatement. The professional sports leagues and organizations profit so much off of cheap labor. The loophole for the UFC is a guy like GSP fighting for potentially only $18,000 for a title fight that probably had 100,000 pay-per-view buys. In the NFL, it's the third-round quarterback getting paid $800,000 per year on a rookie contract leading his team to a Super Bowl win. In the NBA, it's the guy on a rookie contract making All-NBA.
So I didn't have to go back to school, go back to my old life.
I wonder what that would have been like if he had gone back to school or his old job as champion of his weight class in the UFC. I can guarantee that no one would be bullying him anymore. The worst thing that probably happens to guys like GSP is going to a bar or restaurant and having drunk dudes thinking they can beat you up to prove how masculine they are.
It was after my fight with John Fitch. I had to renew my contract, but I was champion and I was doing pretty well. So if I finished my contract, I had big offers waiting for me. So the UFC decided to renew my contract, and that's when I made my first million.
It's always great when you have leverage during negotiation times. As sitting champion, I imagine GSP had all the leverage with Dana. He was an obvious star in the making, and the UFC couldn't afford to lose him.
I start working with financial advisor right away. First, because I'm a Canadian citizen, the tax report is very complicated.
I'm really glad to see so many athletes go into a financial advisor first.
A lot of athletes, they make the mistake, they don't pay their taxes, so I made sure my structure was solid and all good.
I love how the first first tip of paying your taxes is seen as a smart financial tip for athletes?
So a lot of athletes, I think they start right away to invest on luxury cars, stuff like that, jewelry, but I didn't do that.
That is the smartest way to go broke for sure. The ridiculous spending makes for fun episodes of this show, but it's not good for the long term.
The first thing I did is to clear all my parent debt, because my parents are the ones that support me since the beginning, you know? They took care of me as a baby, so that was the first thing I did. Paying my parents' debt, $50,000.
I know people love seeing the athletes pay off their parents' debt, but not all debt is bad. If the parents had bad debt, like credit cards or any type of debt that could possibly force a business to shut down, then yes, paying off debt should come first. But the idea of always paying down a mortgage doesn't always make sense. You're generally better off investing the money in assets and using the cash flow to pay off your living expenses. With real estate, a lot of the money being made is through appreciation. If the local market appreciates 10%, then you only make 10% on one property. If you own 2 properties, then you experience appreciation on 2 properties with the same amount of cash outlaid. It's cool to see, and everyone should invest their money how they please. It's just not always the smartest financial decision, considering numbers only in the decision making.
Second thing that I bought 2 cars for my parent. Japanese car at Toyota.
I would love to see GSP as a sponsor for Toyota. You could have a catchy tagline like, beating my opponents in the ring is like
Toyota.
beating their competition.
I bought myself a car as well, Nissan Xterra. My vehicle was pretty bad, so I needed something safe. And I always love SUV because in Montreal, there's a lot of snowstorm. Nissan Xterra, $20,000.
Nice practical vehicle. It's funny how the landscape of the city you live in can dictate what kinds of cars you'll drive. Here in Vegas, it's perfect weather for an exotic, which is why you see so many. We don't have too many snowstorms in this city.
One of my sister, she wanted to have her master degree, take care of her family and be able to free herself to pursue her dream. And $10,000 for my sister to get her master degree.
It's funny how our collective interpretation of higher education depends entirely on the debt situation. I would like to think most MBA programs are worth it if you have financial aid and don't leave hamstrung with debt. Only downside is time spent out of the workforce. Good on GSP though. I always like seeing athletes taking care of their family's education, especially if it means they were able to further advance in life because of it.
To tell you the truth, like it would be very boring the show if I tell you the truth. Like my parent mortgage, my parent cars, my sisters, this. There is nothing else that I did on the short notice that, bang, you know, like I spread it, you know. Another $50,000 for my family, gifts, expenses, to help them pursuing their dreams.
The reality is that most investing and smart financial decisions are really boring. Pay your bills, attend school, buy a middle-of-the-line vehicle, put money into the stock market or real estate. The fun investing is when you see train wrecks invest their life savings into the next hot crypto coin.
So this $30,000 is all the friends that I helped who told me that they would pay me back, but they never did. So I help a lot of people, and I would say it's about $30,000 that I lost.
This is the ugly side of fame and being a professional athlete. I obviously don't have firsthand experience dealing with this, but the stories are endless of athletes dealing with family members asking for money. They'll always pay you back, but they never do. I imagine this is one of the difficult parts of being a well-paid public figure, having to say no to helping family and friends.
I spent a lot of money traveling around the world to learn new fighting skills. I went to Thailand to learn Muay Thai. I went to Brazil to get better at jiu-jitsu.
This was my favorite investment for GSP. In other episodes, I mentioned that athletes should be investing in their skills during their career first before any other investment. Having a long professional career will bring more money than smart investments will. GSP being able to compete for as long as he did and at the top for as long as he was able to provided him with more money than he'll ever need.
And when I say traveling, I'm talking about training, classes, the food, airplane, the hotels. That's a lot, yeah. $200,000 now. Traveling for training, $200,000.
I love how most people travel for leisure and to see the world, but GSP travels to improve his skills. Sometimes seeing why people are world champions isn't difficult.
It's hard to become champion, but it's even harder to stay champion because you become the target. So that's why When I made my first $1 million, I spent a lot of money and I invested on myself in order to get better.
I know it's common to only think of investing as putting money into rental property, the stock market, or buying companies, but the biggest ROI is going to be investing in yourself so that you can earn a high income. Once you make more money, investing becomes a whole lot easier.
The last thing that I bought with my first million, it was a condo. $500,000, but I needed to do renovation and it cost me about $100K. Condo plus renovation, $600,000.
I would love to know how much the condo is worth now. I don't live in Canada, but I've heard a lot of major cities are pretty unaffordable to buy. GSP is definitely living a wealthy life. Someone that doesn't need much but earns a lot will be fine for the rest of their life. Here's an expert from the same Wealth Simple blog post. So after I won the championship in 2008, I took a big gamble on myself and told UFC I was not going to re-sign with them. And then the day before my fight with John Fitch, the UFC came back with a big, crazy contract because they didn't want me to become a free agent. You read I made $400,000 a match? No, I made a lot more than that. A lot more than that. Millions. When I was at the peak of my career, I was making many millions of dollars because you not only get the money to show and the money to win, but you also have a percentage of the gate and pay-per-view buys. The gate and the pay-per-view buys are where the real money is. As with most professions, the top dogs are going to be pulling in a lot of money, while the people down each level are going to be fighting for less and less of the pie. In the UFC, you're literally fighting for your keep. For the fight with Michael Bisping, with the pay-per-views, the sponsorship and all that, I made about $10 million. $10 million for a single fight, and he won in impressive fashion. What a way to end his career. For those of you who haven't seen the ESPN commercials, here's one of the best ones starring GSP.
Hey, George?
Yeah.
Borrow one of your sticky notes?
Yeah. Come on in.
You know, I'm just gonna write it on my hand.
That's one of the best episodes from ESPN's This Is SportsCenter. UFC 263 was on the other night, and I figured it would be a good time to detail how much the fighters were paid since I made a video talking about why it's so easy for UFC fighters to go broke. The top 3 guys got paid really well because of the pay-per-view buys, but that's only 3 fighters. There were 28 fighters in total. I know it might seem like a lot of money to get paid $150,000 for a single night of fighting, but fighters at that level typically fight twice a year at most. Most of the fighters are earning under $150,000 after taking out taxes and all of the expenses associated with being a fighter, as well as the months of training with zero income. It's barely a full-time income. Marvin Vettori fought Adesanya as the main event and is estimated to have earned only $132,000. Remember, we're talking about the top of the food chain here. These aren't guys competing for state championships at your local Division II college gym. These are world-class athletes a fight or 2 away from being world champion. That's a tough living. I love the UFC because of the fighters, and it's unfortunate that, in my eyes, they aren't compensated as much as they should be. But if you can reach the top, you're paid very well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.